Hi, everyone. I'm Keith Vitali, and welcome to Psychic Podcast. In this episode, I want to share with you a martial arts story of mine. When I was a full contact fighter back in my day. Now, I was approached by a promoter, a full contact promoter. His name is Joe Corley, and also used to promote at the Battle of Atlanta, which is a national tournament in Georgia. But he called me up and he wanted to know if I'd be willing to fight a fighter from Florida. His name is Hank Fair. If I'd go 5 rounds with him in an upcoming tournament match is going to be at the Atlanta Pro-Am coming up. Now, get this, the Atlanta Pro-Am is a tournament, a point fighting tournament during the day, but at night, of course, they're full contact matches. Now, I like Hank. He's a friend of mine. I was fortunate to have defeated him earlier in a match in Jacksonville, Florida. So I said, fine, no problem. Yeah, I wouldn't mind fighting him. Now, I want the viewers to know that at that time, I was starting to make a name for myself as a point fighter. My goal was to one day be the top fighter in the nation, the number one fighter. Now, having said that, I didn't have that same goal as a full contact fighter. First of all, in my weight division, which I was a 150-pounder, was a guy named Benny Urquidez, who was 60-0. So I had no dreams of being the number one fighter in the country, full contact wise. I only did it for the challenge. Promoters would call me up and ask me if I like to fight so and so, and I go, sure, pick up some extra cash. So when he called me up to fight Hank Fair, I said, fine, I'll be glad to fight. So turns out I get a phone call from Joe Corley the week before the event. And he says, I have some bad news for you. I said, what happened? He goes, Hank Fair had to pull out. He's injured. And I said, oh, so is the fight off? He goes, oh, no. I've replaced Hank with this guy from Miami. His name is Paul Anselmo. I said, well, Joe, I don't know who Paul is. Can you tell me something about him? Now, think about this. There's no history between Joe and I at this time, in animosity, but there is animosity, a little conflict between Sikh organization out of Georgia and I'm from South Carolina and clubby with those fighters that, Bruce Brucci's and Mike Genevas and John Orks and all those guys. So, of course, it's kind of tribal. One state doesn't like the other stable of fighters or whatever. So anyway, as he's telling me about this guy, he explains to this guy, Paul Anselmo is 9-0 with 9 knockouts. Oh yeah, by the way, they're all first round knockouts. So I got a little nervous, him telling me that. I mean, you could just imagine weeks ago, I'm prepared to fight one fighter, and then he brings in this guy who's supposed to be just fantastic. So anyway, I was foolish and almost asked Joe for some following advice at the time. I remember how dumb I was. I said, Joe, what do you think I should do to fight this guy who's 9-0? And Joe giggled and he goes, oh, I know. What if she used a sidekick of yours? Being facetious, sarcastic, and hung up on me. So I was so pissed, but I had a good camp already. I've got a great coach. His name is Bill McLeod. He's one of our black belts, and he's just such a great trainer. And then my training mate is a guy named Richard Jackson, who happens to be one of my students as well. And he's already a world-renowned full contact fighter. So show up. This event's at the Atlanta Pro-Am. And again, the tournament's during the day for the point fighting and the full contact matches at night. But anyway, I go check in my hotel and I'm walking around the tournament. I just want to relax a little bit. I want to watch some point fighting. I want to say hi to my friends and kind of relax before I have to fight the full contact match at night. The strangest, eerily feeling I've ever had in my life was as I'm walking around and saying hi to people, they're treating me as I'm a ghost. I'm going, what's going on? And they can't even make eye contact with me. They're putting their heads down going, oh, hey, Keith. In other words, they can sense that this guy's going to knock me out as well as the other 9 people he's knocked out already. And I started to feel that as I'm walking around and I was almost like, I just couldn't believe it. So I went back to my hotel room, resting, and I decided, let's go out in the hotel lobby, not a lobby, but out in the hallway and jump rope, just kind of break a sweat, forget about fighting that night. I open the door, I go outside, I'm wearing shorts, no shirt, I have my jump rope. The guy opens up the door next to me in the next hotel room at the same exact time, and he has a jump rope in his hands. He's wearing boxer shorts with no top and a jump rope in his hands as well. We look at each other, kind of nod, and we start jumping rope. And we then turned and looked at each other, and we both stopped. And then we realized They were fighting each other. That's the guy I've got to fight. That must be Paul Anselmo. I've never seen him before. So he giggles, looks at me, and smiles. He goes back in his room. I go back in my room, and I go, "What's the chance that happened?" So anyway, I show up for the fights that night, and I'm in my dressing room, and a very well world-renowned boxer, his name is Asa Gordon, is putting my hand wraps on, and he's my coach for the night. He's wrapping me up and getting me ready. Bill Wallace, Superfoot Wallace, the world champion full contact fighter, walks in, and he's a little stressed. And he comes to me and says, "Keith," he says, "do me a favor." I said, "What's going on?" He goes, "That jerk, that guy's in the next dressing room, Paul Silva, the guy you're going to fight. He's so cocky. He's telling everybody that he's going to knock you out in the first round. He said, you ought to take care of that guy." And I'm thinking, oh my God, and so I'm really getting nervous. Now you can imagine he's so confident. I'm not. Well, in walks one of my guys that I fight all the time. His name is Bobby Tucker, and he's in my weight division. It just so happens I defeated him earlier in a full contact match, my first one ever. And I defeated him in 3 rounds. So I knew Bobby had fought Paul Anselmo, but Bobby got knocked out in the first round. So when he walked in, I said, "Bobby, thank God you're here. Can you give me some advice or tell me how I should fight this guy?" And Bobby stops. He's really reluctant to give me any advice, but he goes, "I shouldn't tell you this, but if you use your sidekick, you're going to stop." And when he said that, I knew how much it hurt him to tell me how powerful my sidekick was, because he didn't want me to know that all of a sudden I got a boost of confidence. And it was like an angel had come into the room, and I I just felt confident. I smiled and I thanked Bobby. I go into the ring that night. I'm ready. I'm bouncing around. It's a sellout. I'm pretty sure Joe Corley's fighting Bill Wallace in the main event. I'm the featured second event, the co-event. So place is packed. Everybody's excited. And as I'm bouncing around, the music comes on, and it's Rocky's music, theme music from the movie Rocky. Entered the ring. This guy is wearing a wardrobe that says Italian Stallion. I'm Italian, but he's got the Italian Stallion because he's Italian as well. He comes in, he takes his robe off, and the crowd's going crazy. He bounces around the ring. He's like a Greek Adonis. He's tan from Miami. He looks good. He's strong. God, he's built. And I'm like, oh my God, this is going to be a long night at the office here. So anyway, bell rings, and literally he does this. I'm not exaggerating at all. He holds his arm out like this, and he goes, "Come on, what you got?" And all I did was what we call a pulling psyche. I didn't slide up. I just jerked up my front leg, and I used that back leg as momentum, and I shifted, and I hit him square against the ribs as my first move, the side kick. And again, not being over exaggerating, I heard his life force come out of that breath come out of his mouth where he went, on my very first move. And that's when I knew I had him. My strategy was I was a distance runner in college, so I have great cardiovascular, strong legs. I figured I know I can beat him if I can get it past the first round, maybe the second round, because he's very strong. So that was my strategy, and I got by the first round, I got by the second round, and to the fifth round, he's sucking wind, and I'm doing jump spinning kicks and back leg round kicks. And so I was very fortunate that night. I win the match, and the crowd is in shock. Everybody I know is in shock, and I wasn't supposed to win this fight. So as I'm celebrating, I'm going through the ropes to get out to go back to my dressing room. Paul is leaving at the same time, and he taps me on my shoulder. He goes, "Keith," he says, "good fight. Would you mind having dinner with me tonight? I got something I want to tell you." I said, "Fine." So anyway, I meet him for dinner later that night. And I said, "So what's up?" He goes, "Well, I want to tell you that you're set up. I was being trained by Steve Shepard and also Joe Lewis, 2 world champions. I'm trained with them in Miami so I can come here and knock you out." And he said, "But I'm pissed because they didn't tell me about your sidekick." So I'll never forget that. And I was so overjoyed, and how Bobby Tucker came in at the last minute and gave me that boost of confidence. And then Bobby also, right after the fight, he persuaded me and convinced me to drop full contact and focus on point fighting. And this is exactly what I did. So my last fight was against Paul Anselmo. It was a really big win for me. And I went on to become the #1 fighter in the country for 3 years consecutive before I retired and went into acting. Well, listen, I hope you enjoyed this episode and this story. And if you did, please, I want you to like it and share it and leave some comments and be happy to get back to you. Until next time, ciao.